So we are really fortunate today to have with us an incredible woman. Her name is Linda Drake, and Linda Drake is a spiritual medium and healer. And she's written a book called Reaching Through the Veil to Heal, which actually has just recently been published in Spanish as well, correct? We're really excited. What she does is she communicates with spirits on the other side, and she brings back messages to us who are still in a physical body about hope and healing, and helps dispel some of the fear that we may have about death and what goes on with these spirits that are on the other side. So I'm really excited to hear what you're going to be sharing with us. How about a big round of applause for today's speaker, Linda Drake.
Hello, I am delighted to be with y'all. What a beautiful, beautiful group. My husband was just saying we wish we had something like this in Austin, Texas, where we live. We don't get to stay there very often, but we would love to have one.
We can take care of that.
Can you? Okay. Well, today I am going to be talking about a subject that most people are fearful of, death and grief. Now, and people go, well, how can you find joy and talk about this, go around the country talking about this in this way, and thinking that, you know, it's going to be something people want to listen to? Because most of us fear the subject. But death is inevitable. Death is going to be a part of all of our lives. We can't avoid it. Now, most of us, the way we deal with death is we pray it doesn't touch our lives or touch the lives of somebody that we love. But that's not going to work. It is going to touch your life. It is a part of God's plan for us, the circle of love. Because God allows us to come into this life and to experience life, experience everything we can get out of life. And then when we have finished what we came to experience, we are allowed to, our reward is being allowed to return home to God. Now, Spirit came into my life. I'll tell you a little bit about how I got started so you know where my knowledge comes from. But Spirit came into my life about 9-10 years ago now. And I'm a hard sell. The metaphysical world was not a part of my life. I didn't even believe in it. And so when Spirit came into my life, they announced themselves through my prayers. I was in a very desperate state in my life. I had gone through about 6 years of intense pain. I was dealing with fibromyalgia and lupus, and it had totally consumed my life. My hands were curled shut. I was not able to function. It was just a constant level of pain. And it was just one illness after another with the lupus. So I stayed in a lot of prayer. And in my prayer, I kept hearing, take our gift and we'll take your pain. And one day, the pain was just so intense for me, I just reached up and I said, God, if that's you talking to me, I'm ready. Whatever I have to do, I'm ready. And this energy just came over me. And I didn't know what that was, but it felt so good at the moment. Well, within 2 days, my hands opened up. I could turn the lights on in the house because the migraine headaches went away. And I was able to function again. Of course, then I sat down with God and I said, okay, what was it I negotiated for? You know, at the moment it sounded like a great idea. But then I needed to know what it was that I negotiated for. What it was God wanted me to do with him. And they announced, and I could hear them talking at that point, that they announced that I was to be a life path healer. And I said, well, I hate to tell you at this point, but I think you chose the wrong person because I don't know anything about that, and I'm certainly not worthy of working with you. And so they assured me that I had negotiated for that I had agreed, my spirit had agreed to do that work with them. And then I kind of stepped back and thought, wow, what was I drinking at that point? That I agreed to work with God and be this healer that he wanted me to be. But I took off with Spirit, and they began working with me. Now, they told me at that time not to be afraid because they would teach me to do everything that I would do with them. And I said, well, I'm definitely going to need a teacher because I don't know anything about any of this. And so I drove them crazy with questions every morning when I would sit down and talk. And I could actually hear them. Now, at first I thought I'd lost my mind. I thought, wow, I've taken way too many pain pills that I can hear this voice talking to me this way. But they really were talking to me exactly that way. And so I told them, I said, I need some help here. I need some classes, some books to do what I'm going to do. And they said, we'll bring you a teacher. Well, a few days later, I heard another voice talking to me. And I said, well, who are you? And they said, we are Abraham. We are your teacher. And I said, I was waiting for a teacher. Well, remember, when I first heard the first voice, I asked them who they were. I said, who are you? Who's talking to me? Are you God? And they said, no, we are spirit. Spirit is the consciousness of God. Spirit are the angels. They're the fingers of God that work within your life. Spirit is the masters that bring you the messages of God. We are spirit, and we are here to work with you. So that's how my journey began. And after about 5 years of working with them, Abraham, my teacher, who would work with me every day, became my best friend. Abraham came in one day and he said, you're trying to heal the world one person at a time, and you're not going to get to everyone. So I said, obviously, because I'm working 7 days a week and I can't catch up. So they said, so we need to share our messages in a book. And I said, okay, go ahead. And they said, no, you're going to write the book. And I said, well, I don't know how to write. Again, I think you might have chosen the wrong person. They said, we just need you to type it for us. We will give you all of the knowledge we want to put in this book. And so they cleared my schedule. They picked me up, set me down in Hawaii, away from everything and everybody, and said, okay, now start writing. And I sat down at the computer that morning, and 16 energy beings showed up with me. And I said, okay, who are you? And they said, we are Abraham. And I said, well, which one of you is Abraham? They said, we are all Abraham. Abraham is a group consciousness. I said, well, I'm sorry, I've only heard one voice. And they said, we all talk through the one voice. We are a group consciousness that is here to share the wisdom and the healing messages from God. That is our purpose in the lives of humanity. So I said, okay, well, then tell me what to write. And they took off and they wrote this most amazing book about death and grief and how our circle of love can keep us connected with our loved ones in spirit. This circle of love that God has given us. So that's how we began this book that I'm going to talk about today, because I had no idea what they were going to share in their book. Because the work that I'd been doing with Spirit over that 5 years involved a lot of different things. The first thing they taught me to do was to be able to see other people's angels and spirit guides, their support system that works with them every moment of their life. And then they took me a step further, and they taught me how to connect with the other side, how to open that doorway and allow our loved ones in spirit, these beautiful spirits, to come across with their messages. And at first I was very resistant of it because I didn't really believe in that. That wasn't my religion. And so they took my religion and they expanded it out, released me of the limitations of my religion so that I could see the whole picture. And I could allow myself to be the conduit between the other side and those here. And this has just become the most amazing journey for me because I didn't realize how important that was. I myself feared death. I didn't understand what was going to happen. Do we fall off in this big black hole? What happens when we die? You know, my religion had taught me that yes, we go to heaven if we qualify. There's that big issue of judgment there. But what Spirit had to convince me of is that we all go and return back to God. We all return back to God. There is no judgment there. The judgment comes from ourselves when we get there. And we have to view our panoramic view of our life and see, what did we create in our lives? What karma did we create with those around us? Because we have the responsibility of that karma. And so that's what I learned about, through the teaching that Abraham did with me, was on-the-job training. Because every time, once they taught me to open the doorway to the other side, and they started bringing these spirits through, I kind of held the spirits hostage a little bit. Because I wanted to know, okay, I've got your loved one right here, and we'll talk in just a minute. But how did this work? What did you experience when you went to the other side? How did you get? What did it feel like? Who was there for you? I wanted all of the answers. Of course, you would too, wouldn't you? Don't you want the answers? In our life, we turn to our religious beliefs for what is going to happen to our physical body, our spiritual body when we die. What's going to happen to us? What does that journey look like? But often our religions are bound by all that they know. And through Spirit and Abraham's assistance, I was able to open that doorway to all of the answers. All of the answers, because I had those spirits right there talking to me. They had experienced it. They knew what happened, and they were able to tell me. And so I just was blown away by all of it because it was so exciting for me. But the most important thing that I got from that is that they do not leave us. They do not leave us. They're right there for us. That circle of love is real. It's real. Because and that's what Abraham addressed in our book, was that we talk about the journey of life. We talk about what happens as we are preparing to cross through that veil, to go into the light. What happens? What happens to our physical body? What happens to our emotional body? And what happens on the spiritual journey? We didn't have these answers before. And they have begun channeling these answers through me and many others to help people understand the journey, that there is nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear on that journey if you're the one crossing over. But it's a little more difficult for those of us that are left behind because we don't understand. We don't understand why this person has been taken from our life. And now, what's going to happen to us? And so in our book, we talk about grief because there are all these different stages of grief that you're going to go through. And nobody's prepared for it. We see other people lose their loved ones, and we see what goes on in their life and what they're reflecting, but we really don't truly know what it feels like until we've been there, until it's touched our life. And that's what Abraham shared in the book, is the stages of grief that you're going to go through. And not only the process, but how different people grieve in different ways. We each come in as a different with different personality types. There is the logical personality type and the emotional personality type. And you go through your life functioning with these personality types, and the way you see things and do things are very, very different than that opposite personality type. And you're at different degrees of that personality type. And throughout our life, we all strive to get to that place of balance in the middle. We reach that place of balance through our relationships, through our interactions. Because when you came into this life, you didn't just stumble and fall into this lifetime. There was no mistakes. You sat with God, and you chose what you wanted to experience in this lifetime. The issues you wanted to experience, the people you wanted to experience those issues with, the growth that you wanted to achieve. That's all part of your soul's journey. And so you chose all of that, and you chose who you were going to be. That logical one, or that that emotional one, and what you want to learn from these people. So there's no mistakes here. You know, when they announced to me that, you know, I chose my family, I went, well, surely I didn't choose that controlling father because I wanted control. But that was my experience. So you all choose that. You know, we like to blame all of our issues on somebody else, but that was your journey. And again, you chose your parents, your siblings, your partners, your children. You chose all of that for your opportunity to evolve to a higher awareness in this journey, in this part of your soul's journey. Because this is not your only opportunity for growth. You've had lifetimes. And this is just one little part of it. But each lifetime is a tremendous opportunity that God has given you to evolve and grow and open up your awareness to all that is. And death is a part of that evolution. Death is a part of that awareness. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how we grieve. Now, often, you know, as I said, you chose the personality types that you were going to interact with because that's where you found your most opportunities for growth. If you had somebody just like you, there wouldn't be you wouldn't be stretched to grow. You wouldn't be challenged and be given that opportunity. So, of course, you came into this lifetime with these different personality types so that you could learn about them. So, when you're going through life and you lose a loved one, the way you grieve depends on what your personality type is and what your relationship was with that loved one. Because as you've seen, probably all of you in this room have lost a loved one. You've experienced that loss, that grief, the change in your life. How did you grieve? Can you see the interaction you had with others? Because, as I said, often to grow, we put ourselves with that different personality type. And what happens in that situation is the logical personality type, bless their hearts, because when we lose somebody, we'd never get anybody, buried and go through the funeral process if it wasn't for them, because they hold everybody together. That's their job. They're the survivors. They're very logical in the way they think and very methodical. Okay, we have a plan here. We got to work this plan. We got to move forward with life, and they're holding everybody together. And then there's the emotional personality type that they're the givers. They're the compassionate ones, that they're wanting to help everybody throughout their life. And when they lose a loved one, they feel that loss with every fiber of their body. And they fall apart. Often they just fall apart and they can't make decisions. They just can't embrace all of these emotions and move forward with their life at the same time. So often they just want to pull the covers over their head and say, I can't get out of bed today. I can't move forward. I just need to sit here and cry. I just need to sit here and feel my pain. I need to talk about it, because that's how they process through their grief. So if you've got this logical personality type in the relationship and this emotional personality type in the relationship, and they've lost a child or a parent or somebody that they care deeply about, then they're at conflict here, because the logical one is saying, okay, we have to move on. We have to move on. I can't deal with being stuck in these emotions. I have to move on. And the emotional one is saying, no, I have to cry. I have to sit right here and feel it and mourn the loss of that person. I need to. And so they're not able to help each other, because the logical one feels like they are failing their emotional partner or sibling or parent, because they're afraid of being able to help them. Because again, the logical one does not feel comfortable in their emotions. So they want to block it. They want to stay right here. They've taken all their emotions, they put it in a box, and they taped it shut. And they're going to take out their emotions, their grief, one little piece at a time and deal with it, because they have a control issue. But they want to take it out and deal with it in that way because that's what they feel comfortable with. They can't be overwhelmed by it. But the emotional one, they need to be hugged. They need to be held and talked to and help them move through their pain. Well, so there's this conflict going on. So the emotional one's reaching out and the logical one's going, no, let's move on. Let's get over this. Come on. And the emotional one feels that they're being abandoned, that they're not getting the help that they need from their partner or from their sibling or their parent because they don't know how to help each other. It's not because either one of them doesn't want to help. It's because they don't know how. They don't know how to function outside of their personality type and even had the same relationship with that person. So they can't understand why this other one is dealing with it in this way. And so there is a struggle. So please understand, if you're in this situation and you have this opposite partner, you have to explain to them what your needs are and why you have these needs. And if you're the logical one and you don't know how to get into their emotion and deal with that, you know what? All they need is a hug. All they need is a hug. Sit down and listen to them for a few minutes. That's what they need. And if you're this emotional personality type and you feel like you're not getting what you need from that partner, then go for help. Go to a support group. Go to your friends. Go to your other family members that are emotional so you can help each other and you can share this. Because you need somebody to help you through your grief. Don't get stuck in it. Because what will happen is if you get stuck in your grief at that point, then you cannot move forward with your life. And a depression is created for you that you can carry for years and not realize what's going on. So I just want to help you with that, help you understand that there is no specific way to grieve. There is not, okay, it's been a month. It's been 6 months. It's been a year. You can't have somebody tell you how to grieve in this way. That doesn't work. You grieve in your own way because it was your relationship with that loved one. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about the messages that they give me from the other side. Oh my, I am just blown away by the messages because they talk about all of the love that's there. That they are totally embraced with this love. It's just phenomenal what they receive from the other side. And how that they come back and they talk about that they're there, they're there for long periods of time with us. Now, sometimes we can hold them here, but often they're here because they love you and they feel that they want to continue helping you fulfill your purpose. Because they fulfilled their purpose. And they were allowed to go home to be with God. But they're back here to help you. They create all these signs, and we talk about all the different signs and how you can open up and interact with them from the other side. But one of the things that the Spirit stressed in our book was you cannot see what you do not look for. They could be creating all of these signs in your house, whether it's flickering the lights or, playing with the remote control of the TV or, flipping their picture over or making it crooked or playing music for you. They do all of these things trying to interact with you. They do not come back in judgment. When they crossed over, they checked all of the negativity that they held in this lifetime at the door. It did not go with them. So they will not come back and haunt you. They don't do that. That's not their purpose. They come back to say, I'm right here. Let me continue to be a part of your life. Let me continue to bring you love and joy and support you. Because they can be a part of our support group in that way to create situations for us, to bring us jobs. And they talk about how they pray for us on the other side. They actually do pray for us. They see what's going on in our life, whether we see it or not. And they're going, oh, she needs some help here. Look at the relationship she's in. And so they pray for us. I mean, they're sitting right there at the ear of God, so they have a lot of influence. So, let them do that for you. Talk to them. The whole reason they're there is because they want you to talk. How many of us, go to therapists to talk? They want to be your therapist. They want to talk to you. They want to listen to you. And if you open up your heart, you can hear them. But so often, I know if you've lost a loved one, you know that initial stage of grief is numbness. You may have known that Mom was going to die. You saw her on this journey towards death, and you knew she was going to die, and you thought you were prepared, didn't you? But when it actually happened, that numbness came over you because it was like there was this emptiness. You were just standing there in silence, not knowing what to do. God gave you that numbness because if you were to be hit by that full strength of pain that you were going to feel once you had the full realization that Mom was no longer in your life, you would fall apart. You would explode. Too much. So God gives you that state of numbness as you are eased into that pain, as you begin that healing process through your grief. So it's really important for you to understand that is a blessing for you. Sometimes that logical personality type, they resent that numbness because they feel like they're not in control for that little bit of time, but it's very important that we have this. Now, I didn't understand, as I said, I had on-the-job training with Abraham and Spirit on how to do all of this. I didn't get to read the books. I didn't fully understand what it was all about. And so my first experience with spirits crossing over, because I'd been seeing them, but I'd never been with somebody that was crossing at that moment. So Abraham gave me the opportunity to be with a family as their father was going through the journey to death. And so it was like we were there for 4 days off and on. And I was working with the family, and I was working, with the father that was crossing. And he would go in and out of his body. I would see him. He'd be there for a little bit, and then he was out. And I could see his spirit up here, still in the room, but just viewing. It kind of looks like a puff of smoke or a cloud, but pretty vivid for me. And so it was there, and I felt it in the room, and I would talk to it. And he just said that, he was disconnecting and that he would cross over to the other side and visit with his loved ones and was preparing for this journey. And so then all of a sudden I looked up and I felt a shift in the energy in the room. And I'm all about energy. That's how Spirit has taught me to function, is through energy. And all of a sudden it shifted, and so I looked up and it was gone. But and the machines went off, and we knew that his heart had stopped. His physical body had accepted the death. But within just a few moments, all of a sudden there was another figure standing in the room with us. And so I'm looking at this figure, and all of a sudden the room filled with this most amazing energy. And it was coming out of this form that I saw standing there, because I say form because it didn't look like the man in the bed. The man in the bed was 84 years old. This was young and vibrant. It looked similar, but it was young and vibrant. So, but he was projecting this energy out of his heart, and I said, Abraham, what's going on? And Abraham said, he is now channeling the unconditional love of God to his loved ones to help them go through their journey of grief. Oh, it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And the room did. It filled up with his energy. Matter of fact, the nurse walked in because they saw at the desk that the machines had gone off. So she rushed into the room, and she was like, wow. Even she acknowledged this energy in the room. And that's what they began channeling for us, is this unconditional love to help us through our grieving process. It is so beautiful. And that starts our grieving process, but often what happens is that grief becomes so intense for us that we can't endure the full pain of it, so our chakra system shuts down. The chakra system is the energy points in your body that God has given you to function, to heal your own body. Because this life force energy goes into these chakra systems and goes out and keeps your body healthy on the emotional, the physical level. Well, when the pain is too much, we just shut down. And so in the book, we talk about the different ways to open back up, to open up our chakra system so that we can feel and so that we can receive this love and connection with our loved ones. Because we're the one that's preventing it. They're not. They haven't abandoned us. They're willing to be right there with us. But we're the ones that are so afraid. We're in our grief. We're so afraid that we can't let them in. So we talk about all the different ways of opening up and receiving their love. And let part of us. Because then you will begin dreaming about them and feeling them. Because you're able to see them. You really are. If you want to, if you're ready to. If you're in the point in your grief where you can receive the love and joy that they're bringing. It's so important to have this interaction with them. Because that's the job that I have, is I connect people with their loved ones. But what I do may just start the process so that you can follow through with it. But if you can establish it on your own, then you don't need me. It was your relationship. They have their connection with you. They don't need me if you're able to open up to them. That's the beauty of the journey. That's the beauty of the journey of their circle of love with us. So, and that's, I do everything from communicating with your loved ones in spirit to your angels and your spirit guides, because they talk to you all the time. And you just hear it as chatter in your brain, and you can't seem to put it all together because we're rushing through life, and we've created so much chaos and stress in our life that we can't slow down to hear. We can't. And they need us to hear. They need to give us that direction for our lives. So that's where meditation comes in. It helps you with your healing process of grief, and it helps you get back on track with your life. It's important in that way. So what I would like to do is, I'm sure some of you have questions. First let me say, you can, if you'd like to read more about my work or Abraham's work, and some of you are going to have the question, the Abraham that I work with, is it the same Abraham that is in the Abraham Hicks books? If some of you may be familiar with Abraham Hicks books. Yes, it is. I didn't know it. I worked with Abraham for probably 8 years. It was just a couple years ago that I found out that it was the same Abraham. I thought he was mine. I thought he was mine, my own personal, teacher from Spirit. And we were sitting at a big expo, and Abraham told me to get up and go across the aisle and pick up a book. And I said, so I get to read a book? And he says, no, just go pick it up and look at it. Because I've been working with Abraham doing workshops and lectures and personal sessions with people all over the world over the last 10 years. So I went across the aisle and I picked up this book, and I didn't look at the front of it. I just picked it up and opened it, and I was looking at it for a minute, and I said, Abraham, look, they have the same message that you talked about 2 weeks ago. And he laughed. He said, yes, it's my message. And so I closed it and looked at it. I said, Abraham, is this you? Are you famous? And he said, yes, I'm famous. So that's how I first found out that I was working with the same Abraham, because I'd never heard of Esther Hicks or any of her work. So let's open up and see if anybody has questions. Okay, the gentleman in the back.
I've got the microphone. Linda, my name is Kevin. You mentioned two basic personality types, the logical and the emotional, and how they deal with the grief. So what happens if they are aware of those original 5 stages of grief? Would the logical person be able to force himself to be emotional enough to grieve fully? And how does your method differ, say, or does it include those popular 5 stages of grief?
It does include those popular 5 stages of grief. We kind of expand it beyond those, but it's sitting down and allowing yourself to grieve. The logical personality type, they control their life because they're the survivors. They control their life to the point where they have to do it in their way. So there's no set way that they can go through the grief, except that taking it out, taking all of their grief out of that box and sitting down and working with it. Whether we always suggest, get out your photograph album, go through your memories, talk to mom, talk to dad, talk to that child that you lost. And that is how you can actually go through the grief. Because often I have that logical personality type show up in my office going, I don't know what happened to my life. I don't know what you're supposed to do for me, but I was told to come here. But they, it's like all of a sudden they slammed against the wall. They're sabotaging their relationships. They're sabotaging their jobs. They're falling apart, and they hate being out of control. And so it's so hard for them to do this. But you have to embrace that, whether it is working with a support group or just having somebody to talk about this. Now, often the logical personality type, their whole sentence is only about 3 words. But they have to learn how to talk and start expressing themselves, start acknowledging those emotions. So, yes.
I'm glad that you've scoped out the terrain of the after. And that somebody has actually, laid out the floor plan, I guess. But then when you explore that, my logical side, being a logical person, says, well, what about the beginning part? You can't talk about one end and not talk about the beginning. So how is it that I end up meeting a person of the other sex and have a union and create a soul in the first place? So what about that? Because if there's so much scoped out on that side, obviously my logical side once again says that I can be a jerk all my life because, hey, at the end of it, there's unconditional love waiting for me. You see? And
Yes.
I will become that unconditional love helping other people. I can do what I want. But then the other question also, what about the beginning?
Well, you remember about karma? Karma bites. I asked God, okay, look, my life has been really, really challenging. And, I'm doing all this good work. Does that mean that I don't have to come back? Because, I'm really tired. They talked about how many lifetimes I'd had. And, and I went, all those lifetimes and I never got it? I haven't evolved any. And they said, so I said, so what do I have to do in this lifetime? What's the magic thing that I have to do in this lifetime so I don't have to keep coming back? And they said, when you can love everything and everyone unconditionally as God does, you no longer have to come back. I went, oh, well, we'll have a few more then. Because humanity obviously has a way to go on this. Now, there are 7 major issues that Abraham has talked about that we all come into this lifetime to work on. And that's my next book. It comes out in the fall, the 7 major issues and what is our purpose. But, you're talking about scripting your life and if you want to go through life being a jerk, it's fine. But, yeah, that does create karma with people because you came into this lifetime to help people grow. And if you're sabotaging your life by creating this, you're actually sabotaging their life. And you've made a commitment, in your plan, you made a commitment to do these positive things in people's lives. But you know what? Maybe you were the one that made the commitment to do the one negative thing that rippled out and touched people's lives and gave them the power to change. Because we all have the power within our lives to make changes. God has given us the tools of empowerment. It's up to us to pick them up and use them in our lives. So, yes. Oh.
I had heard that not everyone has the same level of consciousness and after they leave. So can you speak to that? And do they all have this unconditional love? And then what about the levels of what we can hear from them?
Okay, that's a great question because we all, and they talk about this in the book also, is, we're all, look outside, look around us. Not everybody is on the same conscious level. And we can't be in judgment of them because that's what they chose in this lifetime. It's not our job to force it down their throats and be judgmental about it. This is what they chose for their lives. This is where their journey is, and we have to allow them to be in this state. Because how do we know that we're not, how do we know that, we think we're really evolved consciously? How do we know that there's not this much higher level than us and we're down here on the bottom? We don't know, but we're all striving in our life to find the awareness that we need, because our truth changes. Our truth changes as we grow. The truth that we embraced maybe 10 years ago, or at least I know mine was, the truth that I embraced 10 years ago is totally different than the truth that I embrace now, because I am now ready for this. I am ready for this awakening, this higher awareness. So it's up to us to search and grow, but without judgment of others. Let me finish here.
Talking about when a person has already died.
Oh, when they cross over. Yes. Okay. Because now that was a question I asked them. When we cross over, is there just one heaven? And they said, for one thing, it's not called heaven, it's called home. And so, but there are different levels. And so we go to the level that we are, that we have attained in this lifetime. Because you keep moving up through each lifetime that we go through, you keep moving up and evolving. So you go to a different level at home. And you can interact between those levels with your loved ones that may not be at that level or may be at a higher level. You're able to interact. But the lessons that you learn on the other side, and there's a lot of work going on the other side, are among those of the same level. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. I think we all started out in the basement, and we're looking for the escalator. Yes.
Fascinating, Linda. I'm very curious, as you're looking out at this group, are you seeing a whole group?
Yes.
I mean, bigger group?
A much bigger group.
Are you seeing all of?
I try to stay turned off, but when I look at somebody, I see all of the energies around them. I see their spirit guides and their angels, because you kind of have this entourage that goes around with you. So I'm able to see this, and I try to stay closed down as much as I can, because it's pretty distracting.
Right.
But it's so much, the energy around you, is so much of who you are. So yes, I'm able to see all of that.
And do you know who they are? Do they reveal themselves, or it's just energy?
Right now it's just energy until I sit down and I focus with that person. Once I focus with that person, then they all come into me. But when I'm just looking at somebody, I see all of the energies around them. So it's really distracting when I'm walking through the mall and all of this is going on. So I try to stay closed down as much as possible, and it's distracting when I'm sitting in the middle of a movie and, somebody's loved one taps me on the shoulder and says, "Can you just give her that message?" And I'm going, "Well, she's watching the movie too." And so I, often I just, after, when they come to me in that way, that tells me their message is pretty urgent. And so, I've let go of all the judgment, and I just say, your loved one has this message for you, and I just walk off and pray that they just don't think I'm crazy as a, bad. So.
And do you have to do it visually, or can you do it from a distance?
Oh, I can do it from a distance. Most of my work is done, because I'm traveling all over the world. Most of my work is done through phone readings. So people can contact me through my website, lindadrakebooks.com, and we schedule appointments. And so much of it is done through the phone, because they come right there to me and talk to me, both your angels and spirit guides and loved ones in spirit, because they want to interact with me to give you that message.
Fascinating.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. I have had a great time with this group. Wow, the positive energy. You talk about high vibrational, you got it going here. So thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, here, she's got one of my books.
Wasn't she absolutely wonderful? How about another round of applause for Linda Drake? And she does have books, and I'm assuming you will be there to sign them at the end of the meeting. Okay, that would be great, so you can take Linda home with you. Now,